We are live. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Big waves out there. That's my favorite part. I'll tell you, I'm a lunatic, but this is my favorite part. I would do it. I think I do that to strangers like on the street now because I'm like, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. It's just fun. So today our word is compete. And I probably could come up with a definition real quick, but I don't have it in my notes and I'm not great at that whole audible thing. So you guys know what it means to compete. Oh, and it looks like coach has just jumped on. So we'll give him a second here, but I'm just going to keep going. But our word is compete. He'll define it for us in just a minute here. But I'm going to start with just a couple. Oh, trying to do a little technology here. It's not working. I'm going to start with a couple of quotes that jumped out to me. So winning isn't getting ahead of others, it's getting ahead of yourself. And that's Roger Staubach. And then the only competition worthy of a wise man is with himself. And I love both of those because I think sometimes some of us, I always talk about some of us, but I think it's I'm talking about myself sometimes, but I think that we can be guilty. I can be guilty of thinking competition is a bad thing because I'm like, well, I'm not going to compete against Colleen. I want Colleen to win, right? So I'm not going to compete with her, or I'm not going to compete with Nancy or Brent. Like, I don't want to compete against other people, but really the true way to compete is to compete with yourself. So that's really what I'm going to talk about today, is just the power of what it means to compete with yourself. So the best part, I think, of competing is that we discover truly what we're capable of and how much more that is than we ever thought possible. And again, I think selfishly, and this was 5 years ago now. So when I turned 40, I decided to compete with myself. I wanted to get a little bit healthier and I wanted to try to run a half marathon. And I had never run ever, like just leave it at that. I had not run. And so a few months before I started, and each day I had the joy of competing with myself and going a little bit farther, doing a little bit more. And I'll tell you, I have never felt more confident. And it wasn't because I got fit or did anything like that. It was because I was doing something hard and I was competing with myself every single day. So 46 is going to be January, right? So I probably should come up with something to compete with myself on because I truly got so much out of it. And again, I think about, our level up group. We're all competing with ourselves, right? I compete every day to get my water in. And when I do, I'm so proud, right? I'm so proud. I'm competing to make sure that I eat appropriately all day and I go to bed proud. So isn't that powerful when we figure out what we can do to make ourselves proud? So why? But what else? What are the other benefits? Why should we compete against ourselves? So first of all, we have a much healthier measure of success. So if I'm looking at, Dr. Kenneth Farish, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go compete against him. Well, we have lived very different lives. And our idea of success and what success is going to look like and our skill set is going to look so different. So we're comparing apples to oranges every time we compare ourselves to somebody else. So compete with yourself, right? And then you're comparing apples to apples. 2, you get a better sense of what you're capable of. Again, if I'm, competing with Deborah, she has different capabilities. And I might be more capable in some areas. I don't know, Deborah, but I might be. So if I only compete with her, I'm not going to see my full potential. But if I compete with myself, I absolutely will. 3, you get to define your own success. And I think that is probably one of the most powerful things because we all have different priorities. We all have different values. So I want to compare or compete with myself and figure out what I want. 4, you become much freer of other people's judgment. If you're competing with you, it doesn't matter if Cheryl's like, wow, that's all you can do. Doesn't matter because I'm competing with me and I know that I'm stretching myself and I feel good about it. 5, you never rest on your laurels. So you're never just going to sit back and say, well, I did better than so-and-so because you're the so-and-so. And if you sit back, well, you're not doing any better than anybody. And then last, and we already touched on this, is the confidence that you gain. just by doing something hard and pushing yourself a little bit farther than you thought you could. So that is my lesson for today. And I believe I've seen his name. Oh, I see him.
And you competed today, Andrea, because I put you on the spot.
You
and
did.
said you're going
Thank you.
first. So speaking of competing, I had an early meeting this morning, and so I was coming in. I told Andrea, I said, I'm coming in hot. So here's where I went with compete. And we've actually, Andrea might have said, we've used this word before. Can you see me okay, Andrea?
We can see you great, but maybe stand still.
I'm moving over to my car. So
okay, I was getting car sick.
I'm sorry, guys. I just came out of a meeting. I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to come out of. But so strive to gain or win something. I think when we think about compete, I know I do. I think about competing against someone else. I think about winning the game. I think about winning the journey. I think about, daily trying to win the day. But here's where I went with compete. We compete with ourselves, hopefully, every day. We've talked about if you look at somebody else's plate, yours is going to get cold. But in saying that, we must stand out from our competition. I do not care what you're doing right now. Every single one of us on this Zoom right now, if you're out competing for yourself, against yourself, right? Like you're trying to win the day. You might be in education. You might be in network marketing. You might be in any career path you can name. You're in competition of other things. And so how are you and how am I standing out to the competition? Myra Miles right now is with Vestavia Hills as an athletic director. She's competing with herself, but she's absolutely in competition with the world around her in making her brand stand out for Vestavia Hills. And she wouldn't mind me saying that. When I was a head football coach, I was in competition of making sure my brand stood out for my school, that made people notice where I was at, the school I was in, and why that school was the place to be. If I'm in network marketing, I've got to make sure my brand stands out because it's a competitive industry. Why should they choose you? Why should they choose me? So we all have competition in the different sectors we live in. What are we doing to compete in that sector with ourselves and to make our brand stand out? So Andrea, if you will, show those 5 I actually sent you this morning, if you don't mind. So I want you to think about this for you, and I'm thinking about it for me in the sector I live in. And if it's education, you absolutely have customers. They're called your parents, your kids that you teach, right? In my business, I have customers. So think about 5 tips to help you stand out from the competition around you. Number 1, I got to give phenomenal customer service. I got to make sure my customers have satisfaction. Number 2, I got to make sure my branding stands out. 90% of the purchase decisions made today come from social media. It comes from what happens when you hear about a new something. You go Google it. So what are you doing right now to make your brand stand out, to make your school stand out, to make your company stand out in that sector? Build a strong online presence. Going back to 90% of consumers find local businesses online. What do you do when you're on the road and you're looking for a restaurant? What do? You go search. You go to your maps and you type in local restaurants. Like what are you doing to stand out? The 4th thing, reward customer loyalty. What are you doing to make those customers come back to you? What are you doing? And maybe you're on here and you go, well, I don't have customers. Yes, you do. What am I doing to make those students come back to me year over year over year? What am I doing to make those parents go, man, I want to be more involved in what they got their hands on in our school? Reward customer loyalty. And then the fifth thing, and we always talk about this, give back. 64% of consumers say they share values. It's the main reason they trust a brand. When they look at the brand, they go, man, that brand, that brand that I'm purchasing things from are a brand that leads with empathy. They care, they lead with love, they give back. I want to be associated. I want to keep buying. I want to keep coming back to that. So when I look at it at the end of the day, here's what I tell you. If you consistently compete with others, you're going to become bitter. But if you consistently compete with yourself, you're going to become better. So what can we do today? What can I do today? What can you do today to compete with ourselves to be better to our customers that are out there that we're dealing with every single day? And ultimately, you're competing with yourself, but ultimately, you're beating the competition around you and making them go, I want to be a part of what they're doing. I want to be a part of what he's doing. I want to be a part of what she's doing. So that's my thought today with compete. Thank you, Andrea, for jumping on and saving the day at the front end. Enjoyed your message. Guys, we love you. We're grateful for you. Guest tomorrow, Tammy Mockbee. Cannot wait to hear from her. So be on. Have a great Thursday, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Coach. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Love you. Happy Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love y'all.
See you guys.